welcome to Little Learners. Today we're going to discuss the truth about unschooling. You may have heard of unschooling recently, as it's kind of been really popular on social media, TikTok especially. There have been some really viral videos about unschooling, and I wanted to make a video about unschooling ages ago, so I wish I had made it before all of this started, but I think it's important to kind of clear up what's going on. You may have seen on social media videos like this one or this one. I'm not going to play them out here because, to be honest, I don't want to give them a lot more screen time, but needless to say, they caused quite a bit of controversy about unschooling. So I thought it would be good to kind of get to the root of what unschooling is and find out if it is as bad as some people are saying it is. Before we get started, as always, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel so that you can see more videos like this. And if you find this video interesting, helpful, valuable, then please do give it a thumbs up, as it really helps out the channel. I've heard that no one's ever pressed the thumbs up button with their elbow, so you could be the first. Okay, so what is unschooling? Good question. I think the issue with the perception of what unschooling is and kind of the negativity surrounding it at the moment has to do with the fact that people are using unschooling to mean different things. They're kind of giving it different definitions. So the main two definitions that I have come across when I've been researching this, because I wanted to make sure I had a really good, well-rounded understanding and opinion of unschooling, are as follows. So the first one, a method of home learning that is child-led and doesn't follow a curriculum. Parents are seen as facilitators and give guidance to their children, but their children decide what they want to learn and when they want to learn it. The second idea of unschooling that I've been seeing, and I think this is the one really that's going viral on social media at the moment, is providing children with little to no guidance and believing that they will learn what they need to learn on their own. This is sometimes referred to as radical unschooling, and basically it means that you're just letting the child do what they want without any guidance and just trusting that they will learn how to do things on their own, like they learnt how to crawl and how to walk and all of those things. Of course, we do provide guidance and resources for those things too, but those are natural things that a child is going to learn to do, whereas with maths and reading and things like that, those are things that children need some guidance for, and so that's where kind of this real negativity and criticism is coming into it, but we'll get onto that later. So those are kind of the two ideas of unschooling that I've come across, but what is the truth? For that we need to go back to the 1970s, which for some reason I always think is 30 years ago, but no, it's 54 years ago. Anyway, the term unschooling was coined by John Holt. His philosophy of unschooling was influenced by Ivan Illich, who had a philosophy of deschooling. Deschooling was an ideology against institutionalised education and kind of traditional schooling as we know it. Today, actually, the term deschooling is usually used by homeschoolers who have taken their children out of school, so unschoolers especially, as a period of time that you are going to deschool. So you are going to just kind of have a break from all kind of traditional learning. The idea is that however many years your child was in school, that's how many months you will take out. So if your child was in school for 2 years, then for 2 months you will do just no kind of homeschooling, traditional learning, anything like that, just to kind of cleanse the palate, so to speak, and then you start on your homeschooling journey. So that's kind of the way that deschooling is referred to now, but the history of it is a bit different. So unschooling flips the idea of traditional schooling and curriculum-led education on its head. It's kind of trying to get as far away from that as possible. Instead, parents follow children's interests. They provide resources for children to learn independently based on what they've observed that their child is interested in. There's an idea of learning through life and learning what you need to know and want to know. So, for example, you may not need to know advanced mathematics if that's not something that you want to go into later on in life, so having a basic understanding of maths might be sufficient. So essentially, unschooling is a form of homeschooling. It's not curriculum-led and it focuses a lot on what the child wants to learn and independent learning, and the parents being facilitators of that. Now, when we get onto kind of the radical unschooling, or perhaps just misguided understanding of unschooling, then there's a bit of a problem, because we get into the territory of children actually not really learning much at all. The whole idea of unschooling is that learning happens all the time, the whole time you're awake. It's not a 9 till 3 kind of thing, and children can be learning wherever, whenever. But when we get into the families who are using unschooling but not quite understanding what that means, or going into radical unschooling, there are a lot of criticisms, and I think that's also coming back on the unschooling families who are following unschooling in a safer and more thoughtful way. One of the big criticisms about unschooling is reading. I see this everywhere when I'm looking at unschooling. And the idea of children just learning how to do things on their own is difficult when it comes to something like reading, which is not something you can just learn by yourself. You need someone to be guiding you. A child is never going to know that a B makes a B sound unless they're told. So that might be being taught that, or it might be parents reading to them and then they start to understand what those words mean, how they're made up. And so for some unschoolers who are on perhaps more of the radical side of things, children are not learning to read until they're much older, or they have a much lower reading level than would be expected of their age. And with unschooling, you're kind of taking expectation out of it. So I'm not talking about, a 6-year-old has a reading age of a 5 or 4-year-old. I'm talking a 19-year-old still doesn't really know how to read. That is obviously not the case with all unschoolers, but I think that is what gets the most media attention and social media attention. Another criticism that I see is about life skills. So you see a lot of people on social media talking about how their children are going to learn life skills. I'm going to teach them how to chop vegetables. I'm going to teach them how to buy things at the supermarket, how to budget. I'm going to take them to museums to learn about history. And the criticism behind that is that as a parent, those are things that we do anyway. It doesn't mean that you have to take your child out of school to be able to do those things. You should be including your child in all of these kind of life skill moments anyway, no matter what kind of schooling your family chooses. Although, of course, not going to school means you do have more time to do some of these things, like visiting museums and aquariums and finding out about history, visiting places further away where you need to stay somewhere so that you can visit, and it gives you that kind of freedom. On that point, I do just want to make it very clear that homeschooling in any sense, any type of homeschooling, is absolutely a privilege. There are many families who might want to homeschool but cannot homeschool because of finances often, or other responsibilities, caring responsibilities for other people. So for example, if you have a 2-parent household with 2 children and you want to homeschool, you have to be able to survive on one income so that one parent can do the homeschooling. And so obviously there are different ways that families do it, but it is important to remember that it is a privilege and not something that everyone can access. Now, probably the most negative criticism that I've seen about unschooling, and I think this is mostly to do with the more radical unschooling and unschooling being used as a term for just letting your children do what they want and not really facilitating any learning for them, is that it borders on neglectful. There are a lot of concerns about some of these, families that have gone on to TikTok and Instagram talking about their unschooling philosophies that seem to be just neglecting the children. There are some Facebook groups about unschooling and radical unschooling, and there are questions on there such as, my child plays video games for 7 hours a day. Can you tell me how this will help him in the future? And so it's that really kind of misguided concept of unschooling that gets people worried about it. And unfortunately, because of the few that may be bordering on neglectful, the many who are doing unschooling in a much more thoughtful way are then also being criticised because of the different definitions that people seem to have about unschooling. So I'd be really interested to know your thoughts. If you are doing unschooling, how are you finding it? What are your opinions on unschooling, whether you are doing it or not? If you are homeschooling, do you use a bit of unschooling and a bit of curriculum-led schooling? Because obviously with homeschooling, you can pick and choose what you want to do, what works best for you and your family. Every child is different, and so one type of education is not going to work for every child. It may be that unschooling works really well for one child, but another child might really crave that structure that traditional schooling might provide, or there might be something in the middle there. So I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. There are so many benefits to homeschooling in general, as there are traditional schooling as well. Personally, I don't think unschooling is for me and my family, but I hope this video has been helpful and given you a bit more insight into what unschooling actually is. When you see those TikTok videos, you can decide what kind of side of the fence they're on. If you would like to see more videos like this, please do hit that subscribe button and click the like button if you found this video interesting. Don't forget you can find more resources and information on my website, littlelearners.education. And don't forget my book, Starting School, A Guide for Parents and Carers, is available on Amazon as a print copy or a Kindle copy. So you can check out the link in the description box below to get your copy of that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.